What is up, everybody? Great to see you today. Thanks for joining us on The Edge. I'm Trey Griggs, your host, and glad to have you with us today. We've got a great show for you, but before we do that, make sure you check us out at betaconsultinggroup.com. We'll show you how we're helping companies with their messaging, and it's very exciting to help build brands in the industry. So check us out at betaconsultinggroup.com, and we will schedule that call with you and get on there and hear your story. We'd love to help you write yours. Also, follow us on social media at TreyGriggs24 and at Beta Consulting Group out there, all on all the socials. We'd love to have you as a part of what we are doing. Okay, before we get into this today, this is The Edge, powered by the Menayer Group, showcasing the latest in logistics technology. And today we got a banger. We're going to have a good time here in just a minute. Before we get to that, a little bit of transportation tech news to talk about, a few stories, a few headlines. First of all, there was a cyber attack by Estes Express, or at Estes Express, I should say. They didn't cause it. Messed up their IT systems. Estes Express line on October 3rd confirmed that it had issues in their cyber attack that was targeting trucks. They were still moving, but it was an issue to their ecosystem. Also, Tesla, Q3, the results are in. Sales rose 27%. But fell short of the estimates. We'll see how the electric vehicles, and especially how that impacts trucking, how that happens here shortly. We'll get to that moving forward. Daimler Truck Generation H2 set a single hydrogen fill run record. So hydrogen trucks, I'm excited about this. We'll see how that works out. I actually think that has a better potential future than the electric trucks just because of the grid and the power needs that we have. So we will see about that. We'll see how all of that goes. Also, a couple of other things. Volvo Energy developed a second life plan for a truck battery. The batteries have to get better. They're too heavy. They don't last long enough. We got to have some improvements on that. So hopefully we get some good news out of that coming out of Sweden. We also saw that Uber Freight and Wabi teamed up on AI-powered autonomous trucks. They are coming, folks. They're going to be down the road right next to you soon. So be on the lookout for those. And then finally, we're seeing some emerging tech really start to take trends. Obviously, AI is big in the industry. We're hearing a lot about that. Paperless trade. People are going paperless and continuing to do that, which is great, especially with trucks. Too much paper in the industry. And supply chain finance is growing as well. Tools like Navix and others that are helping with audit and processing invoices. All of that is growing and getting better. So a lot of great stuff there. That's an article by Grace Sharkey, our good friend Grace Sharkey, over at FreightWaves. All right, everybody, it is time to start the show and bring on our guest. This guy's been doing some great work in the industry for a while. He's over at Hubtek doing some great work. Everybody give it up for my good friend, Dan Hellman with Tabi Connect.
Tell me, do you want to go?
Oh, it's a good song, my friend. How you doing?
Doing well. Thanks for having me.
I know. Good to have you on the show, man. Good to have you on the show. We've been talking about Tabi Connect for a while and what you guys are up to. So good to actually get you on the program and do that. It's about time. No, you got some news to share today. We got some news, so it'll be great. Also, before we do that, we got an audience today. So wherever you are watching the show, let us know where you're watching the show from. And as we go through the show, if you have any questions for Dan or how Tabi Connects works, put those into the questions on the platform that you're streaming, and we will get to those as many as we can as possible. All right, Dan, before we begin the show, we got to ask you, do you want a coffee mug or do you want a water bottle? We appreciate you being on the show today. We're going to send you one. Which one would you like?
I would do the mug. I probably drink more coffee than water in a day.
How many cups of coffee are we talking today? What's average? What do you got?
This is really, it's kind of disappointing. 2 to 3 in the morning, and then afternoon, either another cup or maybe a sugar-free Red Bull. I got 2-year-old kids. I got a 5-year-old and 2-year-old. And run me right.
You know what's funny about that, Dan? My kids are 15 and 13, but I don't even remember what life was like when they were that little. I was so sleep deprived, so I totally get it. You need the energy. You got to keep the wheels spinning, man. I get it. Totally. Not a problem. All right. So we're going to get started here. First of all, Dan, I want to talk to you about your backstory. You know, you started as a freight broker. There may be some more to the story. Talk a little bit about your entrance into transportation and your experience before making the move to jump on board with Tabi Connect.
Yeah, so I came from the brokerage side. So I was a broker for about 14 years. Started straight after college. Was at TQL. Started there. I was there for
typical, common. Yep.
Yeah,
okay.
There's a lot of people that go to TQL. They trained me well. I was there for about 7 years. That's what brought me out to Denver to open up and run their office. That was their third office, I think, at the time. Now they have, I don't know, 50 or 60 or something like that.
Yeah.
And I was ready for something new. So I took a year off, and then I helped start up a brokerage for an old customer of mine. So ran that for about 6.5 years. Simple Logistics. We grew it to about 50 million roughly. And then at that time, Hubtek was a vendor of mine. And so Scott, one of my coworkers at the time, he was following automation really closely. And that was how we started interacting with Hubtek. And so when I was at the brokerage, we worked with Hubtek to build one of the first rate quoting automations. It was insanely basic, very, very basic, but it's, it changed things for us and kind of got me hooked. And so that made the jump from brokerage over to the tech side.
Yeah, that's actually how we met. I had a short stint at Hubtek whenever that was it, because I'm really into tech as well. Automation, I thought that was it was a new concept back in 2020-ish when we were doing it, 2019. And I was excited about it. I knew the possibilities that it had in there, and working with you and Scott, that's where we met. And you guys were definitely on the leading edge of trying to build out a rating automation tool specifically for your needs. But it was pretty simple at the time. That's for sure. It's come a long ways. But I'll tell you what I love, Dan. I love seeing operators like yourself jump in to build tech. I think that's really powerful because, people like Michael Caney over at Highway, he was an operator for years, and now he's at Highway, and he's giving the broker perspective as they develop their software. Kevin Coombs at Green Screens, he's been a broker and worked in a TMS. He understands that seat really well. Cassandra Gaines was, a lawyer inside of a brokerage, so she started Carrier Sure. We're seeing operators get more and more involved in tech, and I absolutely love that. So, what was it about the tech that you liked it enough to use it, but then you liked it so much you wanted to start developing more and selling it? What was that transition to make that jump?
Yeah, I mean, so we started automating one shipper, and it's one of those shippers that we all brokers have. It's high volume, lots of quoting, pain in the butt. No one likes them. You can't win much freight. It's cheap, quote unquote cheap. But we saw opportunity, so we had a very basic automation like Tabi's come. It's light years away from where it was then, and it changed it from one of the lowest performing accounts to a top 3 account for us. It changed it from like we were bringing in before like $1,500 a month in margin to over $20,000, $22,000. And so it was just kind of like dumped out like, hey, we're not even quoting, it's quoting, and those just kind of get sent over. Like it's a beautiful thing. And so seeing what could be done is what excited me. And seeing how it can work in the processes. And like you said, being an operator in the tech field, you know what works, you know what doesn't, you know how to implement, you speak the language and know why things need to be done a certain way.
Yeah. And I think that's really critical on the sales side too, which we'll get to as well. Like just having that experience, being in that seat certainly helps when you're talking to other, freight brokerages about their needs, just knowing what they're going through. Before we address that though, do you know what Tabi actually stands for? I know you probably do. The audience, I wonder if they understand what Tabi stands for. I happen to be in the room when that was created, so I remember way back in the day. Do you know what Tabi stands for?
Yeah, so the task automation bot is
just making sure.
Yeah.
I assumed it was a yes, but I had to pull the string and see if you did. So that's right, task automation bot.
Back then, we were doing a lot of different customized automation. We do invoicing, appointment scheduling, load building, all those customized ones, and then we saw the need for rate quoting. So now we are getting very hyper focused with Tabi connecting the rate quoting products, still doing those automated processes, but it's kind of evolved because, RPA is one aspect of it, but we're using so many other technologies and pulling them to each other.
Right. All right, cool. So let's jump into this. So first of all, let's really tackle what problem are you solving? You described it a little bit in your experience at Simple, but what problem are you solving for freight brokers in the industry with this?
Yeah. So brokerage, it's played with manual processes. We all know that. We know the market's soft right now, but what a lot of companies don't realize is how much missed opportunities are actually sitting out there. So we have locked in some partnerships, and I say partnerships are actually true partnerships, not just integrations, with some of the major platforms, and we get access to a lot of data. And so, for example, on E2, it's one of our closest partnerships. On average, if a broker is manually quoting, manually putting in rates, they only respond to 7 to 10% of spot quotes. That's it. So extremely low volume. We'll never get to 100, but 7 to 10%, you can do much, much better.
So to put in perspective, they get 100 opportunities. They can really only get to 7 in real time just because it's a time issue.
It's a time issue. They time out, they get busy. It's a hard pill to swallow for a lot of brokerages. They don't believe it. Then we can pull their data, show it to them. You can't fight that. So one, it's allowing brokerages to quote a lot more to capture that. But even more so, we've elevated Tabi to not just be automated quoting. That's just scratched the surface. It's more of a complete rate management system. So the analytics, before brokerages can never really track all the requests they receive, what they respond to, what they don't respond to, their win-loss, because it's so manual, it was impossible. Well, now with Tabi, a brokerage can track 100% of every single quote hitting their company, whether they respond to it or not. And I think we just lost you. Trey gave me a warning that might happen. So I was going to continue on. So we're doing that right now. The first level of kind of ROI with it is responding to more quotes than you would in the past. So
yeah, and not only that, but are they able to?
All right, it's my show now. So respond to more quotes. So right now, on average, our users respond to 68% of spot quotes instead of that 7 to 10% that they had before in the past. And that missing 32% is not missing. It's not quoted because whatever rules they put in place or exceptions.
Yeah, I heard the whole thing. I was here the whole time. You did a great job.
Great, awesome.
Yeah. The tech guy's coming tomorrow, everybody. So hopefully we get this resolved. But yeah, absolutely heard the whole thing. So keep going along those.
All right, take it over again. Yeah, so the third missing 32% is because of rules they put in place. They don't want to respond to it because of location or lane type, equipment type, multi-stops. It's an ice cream load versus a reefer load, any of those things.
Yeah, and they get to track all that so they can go back and look at what they quoted, what won, what didn't win, those types of things. All that data is in there. They can check it out and see what's working, make adjustments as needed, that kind of thing.
Exactly. Because I mean, it's like, brokerages typically they'll track load count, margin. Those are all lagging indicators. To determine true customer demand, it's quote requests coming in. And so when you're tracking that, you have an idea of what your customer demand is, what you can convert from spot freight to contracted freight. It's really kind of limitless of what you can do with that data.
So automation is definitely a buzzword in the industry right now. We're seeing a lot of that take place. There's other companies that are doing some form of automation, AVRL, speed to quote. There's a couple others. Bitfreighter's doing some of that now. Like, what makes Tabi Connect different, unique compared to those tools, or what just makes it really stand out?
Yeah, it's kind of like how do we stand out from potential competition? And the product overall right now, we almost don't have any competitors.
Don't say that. Don't say you don't have competitors. Come on.
Well, let me explain this, because you could say, yeah, automation providers are doing similar things we are. But there is no automation company out there that's bringing it all together. No automation company is automating platforms. We have Tabi and embedded into email accounts doing free-form text, processing RFPs, internal API portals, and external that you can push to shippers. So with those, we can capture every rate request. So we have competitors that are doing platforms, competitors doing email, competitors doing APIs, competitors doing RPA, but no one's doing all of it.
That's a bold claim, my friend. We're gonna have to see if that's true, but I appreciate you saying that.
I haven't seen it, so I welcome to see it.
I know. I love the fact that you're open about it, and that there needs to be good competition actually in this space, because it only drives everybody to be better. It drives everybody to do something better, to keep advancing technology and trying to find better ways to solve these problems. So I love the fact that you embrace the competition. I bet you got some competitors out there. You do.
Yeah.
All right. So let's talk about who's this product for. When you think about the target audience, is it just freight brokers? Are you also expanding to doing some work for shippers or carriers, or who's the main product for?
The main product primarily is for brokerages, then asset-based carriers second. Asset-based carriers second, because right now are focused primarily on spot freight, and that's not necessarily the realm for asset-based carriers. If it is, we can work with them. The RFP modules, where that fits in. So it's for brokerages. And as far as size of brokerages, one thing I'm really proud of with how we structure this with our pricing and our functionality is our customer base is extremely diverse. So I just did a LinkedIn post yesterday on our Q3 numbers. So we set up, I might be a little hazy. There's 16 new customers in Q3. We got live up and running. The smallest customer in size of revenue was about $10 million a year. The largest customer is over $3.5 billion. And so the ease of entry, because we price based on like the shipper level, can allow small companies to jump in, but it's robust for the customers of ours that are top 10 brokerages.
Is it a buy the drink model, subscription model? How does that work on the pricing? Just some general terms.
Yeah, so it's a subscription. Contract terms vary, but we price it out on how many shippers they want to automate. And so you can start small, dip your toe in, and grow. What I also love about it is that we're incentivized to make sure that they have success. because typically customers start with just a couple. And so if we don't make sure they have success with onboarding, training, support, they're never going to add more shippers, and then we're never going to sell more or capture more revenue.
Yeah. That's a critical component to any tech companies, the onboarding and the training. Man, I've seen too many tech companies. There people don't even know how to use the product fully, and then they don't see the value, and then they usually don't renew, or it just doesn't fulfill the objective that they thought. It leaves a sour taste in their mouth, and I absolutely hate that, because technology, if it's implemented correctly, should be a game changer for your company.
No, and you got that support. And so we've built out, we have dedicated account managers, do all the training. We have a training platform our customers have access to with videos and quizzes and resources. But even on the onboarding, what I'm also really proud of with our team, and kudos to our development team, is I want to make another bold statement, Trey, that you can hold me to. No one moves as fast as we do when going live on 99 shippers. It's, that the speed that we can go is pretty impressive. Like an example would be Ryan Transportation. We do some case studies on them. So we started off with 25 shippers. We had 25 shippers live in 4 weeks, 33 shippers live in 8 weeks. And so that's
not bad.
It's fast. It's very, very fast.
That's not bad. I do like that. Ryan Transportation out of Kansas City. Good friends over there. Jeff Henderson, good people over there. As far as you talked about asset-based brokerages, so obviously you're able to return quotes for brokerage to a shipper. Does it also return quotes for the carrier side to the shipper? Maybe some direct pricing in that regard? Or is it really just for the brokerage side?
So it's primarily for the brokerages because it's focused on spot, whereas the actually asset side, they're just not playing the spot game as much. If they do, we do have some asset-based carriers that are. And so it's still the same process, same technology. It's just, does that fit into their business plan and spot?
Sure. It's a smaller piece of pie to even go after that.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Okay, cool. Well, the next question we have to ask is, does it work, and how does it work? We're going to get to that in just a minute. We're going to take a quick break. So listen to this message from our sponsor, the Monero Group.
My favorite thing about working with the Monero Group is really just it feels like a partnership.
I would definitely recommend the Monero Group and Wasim to anyone.
Any logistics company would be lucky to have him as a partner. You can trust that he's going to bring the right people to the table at the right time for you, and he'll do what's best for your business.
Not only has he brought us, a tremendous amount of talent, but also the right people.
When we changed the rules on kind of what we were looking for exactly, he just said, okay, let's go back to the drawing board, surfaced another great batch of candidates, and we wound up hiring one with about 2 weeks now.
Man, I'm so excited to have the Monero Group on board as a sponsor. Wasim is so great. He's a great golfer too. We have a lot of fun on the golf course. So if you're out there and you have a tech company or supply chain, you need help recruiting, make sure you talk to Wasim, monerogroup.com. Such a good guy. Do you know Wasim?
I have not met him. I've heard good things.
We need to introduce you, my friend. He's phenomenal. One of the best in the industry. Love working with that guy. Also, the timing on that commercial was pretty good, because you may have experienced the same thing I experienced, which is the National Broadcast Service just sent out a little message there, a test. So if you had your phone or your watch, it probably just went off. Mine went off during the commercial. Thank goodness the timing worked out just right. Well planned. We planned that, everybody, just so you know. We all planned that. It is amateur hour around here. All right. So Dan, let's jump into this. If you could share your screen, my friend, we're going to jump into the demo, because we want to know, how does this work? And you can explain that. And does it work? We want to make sure it works. And so we want to hear about that. Talk a little bit about how it works as you bring up your screen share, and then we'll share the screen and jump in.
Yeah. So think of Tabi as the hub of the logic tree. I'm trying to screen share right now. There we go. And so we have a lot of different inputs coming in. It could be from those platforms, like I said, email, bulk uploads, or different API portals. And so Tabi is receiving the load information, OD pairs, equipment type, van, the appointment times, all of those. We'll grab it. API connect to the rate engines you're using. We're connected with all the major rate engines. Can even pull your historical data, pull back that expected truck rate, run it through our logic tree, the parameter set, to determine the final bill amount, and then we'll submit the rate back into the platform or email it back to the shipper.
Okay, so pause for a second. Question. The interface, do customers have to use the interface, or does this run in the background, and there's some integrations with TMS where they can see some of this data, or they can see it working, or it's just working in the background. Talk about the interaction with the customer.
Yeah, it's working in the background. So we can integrate with their TMS if there's APIs available to connect to. If there's not, can run alongside, and we can just pull their data another way. But they are going to work with our interface to control the logic. One thing we wanted to make, we made Tabi, is it's going to be very easy to use for companies without a lot of technical background.
So this is the control panel, really. This is where they would make decisions, and they would run off of those decisions.
Exactly. And so there's zero coding. You could have your account managers actually manage the logic and parameters themselves. It's that easy. But we have all the controls, so you can set roles and permissions of what people can see, what they can't see, what they can change, and what they can't change. So it's kind of roads coming in, sending back out. If it's all APIs, it takes about 3 seconds. If you have to use RPA because there's no APIs available, then it could take 35, 40 seconds, roughly, depending on the platform for those quotes. And so we'll interact with both APIs and RPA, expand the reach. So that allows us right now to interact with over 48 different customer TMS's platforms, which opens up to thousands of shippers.
How many freight brokers are using this today?
So right now we have just over 70 customers. Tabi Connect, the product, as you see today, has been around for about 2.5-ish years, I'd say. Because we're always doing customized before that. It took us almost a year and a half, a little more, to get to 20 customers. And now we're kind of in that hockey stick growth where we've added 50, just shy of 50 in this year alone. We're adding about 5 a month right now.
Excellent. All right, so let's dig in and show us what this is. It looks like a beautiful dashboard, but what the heck does it mean? What do we got?
Yeah, so we're capturing the analytics, and this is just our sample demo dashboard. We create a lot of custom reports, and all of our users can actually export the data themselves if they're Tableau users and manipulate it themselves. So it's going to show all the quotes processing through. It's dynamic. You can break it down by each customer, top origins, destinations, lanes, quoted amounts. I got to hide this sharing screen. You go through some of the heat maps of where they're moving from, and also just overall quote volumes. Some other reporting that we have in there is, variance reports. If you're using multiple rate engines, what's the difference between every single rate engine you're using, so you can cross-reference, see what's more accurate for you by shipper, by lane.
So
by
customers using DAT, maybe green screens, maybe sonar. They can see which one is more accurate, or at least which one's winning more freight. They can compare those.
What's closer to, what they're getting their trucks for, and how does it work within their network, and not just overall as a company. And they're not using gut check. I feel like this is better, but they can say, all right, with this customer out of this state, this rate engine's more accurate for us. Out of this, with this customer and these lanes, this rate engine's more accurate.
And still focused on the spot side of things.
Still focused on the spot side of things.
Yeah. Yeah, excellent. So if they look at this and they say,
it's coming out in about a month and a half.
Nice. This is interesting. So if a customer is paying for all of these different services, and they realize that one of them is just not doing anything for them, they could potentially save some costs by not having all the services, or pick the one that's working the best. I don't know if they would necessarily do that. It's always good to diversify a little bit, but they can at least see certainly which ones are performing better than the others.
See which one's performing better. See which customers have the best ROI. See where how their sales are even spending their time. So it gives a lot of insight into how a company is operating, how healthy it is.
Interesting. And with ROI, are you including the cost of the service? So for example, like whatever they're paying for green screens, whatever they're paying for their people, the ROI they're getting back on that, like how in depth does that ROI calculator get?
So we can factor those in. Now, some of what their contracts are with the rate engines or those providers, we don't necessarily have that information. They want to share with us, we can work into it. And so we can factor in, what are our costs? Are there any other platform costs or API costs they may have? And we're tracking win-loss percentages. We know exactly what results it's producing.
Okay, cool. That's interesting. I think that's fascinating, because how do you compare one technology to another? How do you compare one load board to another, one rating service to another? Because a lot of companies are using multiple, maybe not sure which one's actually working the best.
Yeah. And another thing is, like, we do have some value within the couple partnerships we have. And these are 2 big announcements that we haven't publicly announced yet. And so we are big on partnerships, and we see partnerships as something that's going to benefit our customers and not just integrations. So we finalized the contract with E2Open, formerly BlueJay, to where we can now resell, or the exclusive reseller of their APIs for their real-time rating. And then our customers, we can sell it at a 25% discount of their APIs and a 75% discount on their implementation fees. We can also run pilot programs where customers can try out the real-time rating, using their APIs without paying any API bill whatsoever. We get them up and running, and they don't have to pay any APIs and see it with the ROI. The other one that we haven't announced yet, we just finalized with Blue Yonder, also exclusive reseller of their APIs. And a huge advantage is they're also doing what they call dynamic pricing, where the shipper pulls rates out of the broker system. They have a 3-year contract, and it's based on your load count you're moving. And if you want to just connect with one shipper, you have to buy the entire API package. Well, we can sell it with a one-to-one connection. So if you want to sell, you just need to connect to just one shipper via API. We can sell that one connection significantly discounted to what the overall package is, and we can do it with a 1-year contract.
So an exclusive partnership with E2 Open and a partnership with Blue Yonder to provide some of their services at a discount is what it sounds like.
Essentially, yeah. Our systems work incredibly well together, and so they choose us as their exclusive reseller for it, just because it's seamless, and so we can have people up and running in just a matter of weeks. Like E2 will have people up and running on both sides in 4 to 5 weeks.
Excellent. Nice. Making some news here on the show. Appreciate that.
Yeah.
All right. So let's talk about the controls. All right. So you said it's easy for somebody to be able to manipulate the controls to make adjustments. Let's talk about that a little bit. What are some of the controls? How does that work?
Yeah. So we call them parameters or parameter. Oh, I just got logged out.
Technology. That's how it works, doing a demo.
I know.
Now we can all see if we can guess your password into these things.
I know. That's my 40.
How many letters? What does Dan care about? He lives in Denver.
My dog's maiden name. All right, so the parameter set. So this is the logic.
Is there any way you can blow this up just a little bit? Can the screen get a little bit bigger? There we go. Yeah,
you might have to do a little scrolling.
Much better. That's fine. Totally fine.
Yeah. So these parameter sets, it's like the quoting logic, and you can create one for every single shipper you have. You can create one for every single shipper's equipment type. You can even dial it into who the load tender is. You're in quote someone you have a great relationship with differently than someone you don't. We have 48 different parameters, dials, to turn up the rate or down the rate. Essentially, we took what is in every broker's mind that they're doing currently and put it in here. So all those nuances they take into consideration. I like to break it into 3 different buckets of parameters. So bucket 1 is margin, how much money you want to make. So either every parameter is either a markup by a dollar amount or by a percent. So 0 to 100 miles, 101 to 250, all the way across country. How much do you want to add on top? The other bucket of parameters is based on increased truck costs that aren't reflected in the rate engine. So let's say lead time. It's more expensive, closer to pickup. Pickup times, you can add as many bands there as you want. You know that if you pick up at 7 in the morning, it's more expensive than 3 in the afternoon because limited capacity. Same thing for delivery time. And it's as simple as a slide bar to schedule those of what times you want. And what's beautiful about this is that you can see it's pretty easy to fill out. You can have an account manager do it themselves. And when you make a change, you click save, it's live automatically. So you can adjust quickly with the markets. And also with each parameter, you have the ability of 3 options. No-go, meaning, hey, if it falls in this appointment time band, don't quote it, exception. Tabi will email the human user letting them know, and so they can do it the old-fashioned manual way if they want to. Extra charge means add more money on or take money off. Alert notification is add more money on and send me an email, let me know what happened. So we're tracking into the days of the week, holidays, great for pre-scheduling DOT Blitz Week, even City Fest, those things affect the industry. Going into all those different nuances. We're bringing in.
There's a lot of surprises in transportation, but there's also a lot of things that are scheduled, like holidays, like DOT week, things like that, where you can prep this and not be caught off guard.
Exactly. Yeah. And what I'm also really, really excited about is another big announcement. So this is our current platform. We are releasing a brand new platform here in 2 weeks that has even more functionality, even more reporting, and even more controls.
Is it just an iteration of this? Is it the same thing, just with an iteration, or has it got
completely different platform? So we're migrating customers over. We do new releases every 3 months. but this new release is actually a brand new platform. I wanted to show it, but I was told no. We can wait for it.
What? Well,
I know. Have me on in 3 weeks and I'll show you. But yeah, so you can bring multiple rate engines. You can weigh them out of how you want to compare them, and that's also what's going to trigger like what is more accurate. And so you could say, all right, I want to use 100% truck stop for this customer. Next parameter set, I want to use 100% green screens. I want to use 50-50, 50% DAT, 50% someone else. So you can kind of weigh all those out. So a lot of different controls. We haven't come across any requests for new parameters. The third bucket is like, what do you want to quote? What do you not want to quote? So that'll be the first say you shouldn't automate 100% of your freight. There's things that you just need human eyes on. So is there a certain city, state, entire state, 3-digit zips? You don't want to quote for origin, destination, exact lanes, a state by state, or maybe certain mileage. You don't want to automate local runs or cross-country runs if that's just not your bag. But also, is there a certain location that you do want to quote, you just want to add more money on top? Like back when I was on the broker side, I always use this example, but I had loads coming out of Johnson City, Tennessee. It's about 100 miles east of Nashville. And for whatever reason, it was always $150 more expensive than what our rate engine said. So you'd add Johnson City, Tennessee here, $150. And so it's captured, so it applies to the quotes.
Yeah. So that legacy knowledge that you have just from working the lane for years and years, you can put in here, and anybody who just starts isn't going to get surprised by that either when it's the first load that they're doing out of Johnson City or someplace like that.
Exactly. You can even do it to the actual location. And so you can see it's really easy. So if there's a shipper or receiver you know is a pain in the butt to work with, your truck's going to sit there 5 hours and not get the attention, add the location here, how much money you want to add on to account for that, like you would manually, and it's going to account for that. So we really wanted to stress that it was going to be easy to use for a zero technical lift from the customer side, and we're capturing what goes through a broker's head.
Yeah, I mean, essentially, you're creating the connections on the back end. You probably have APIs already built, I'm going to imagine, to a lot of the shipper platforms, so that they can plug in API credentials. It sounds like probably user API enter credentials. Is that correct? Or do you guys do that on the back end?
Yeah, so we do the API credentials on the back end, but there is in the new platform, they can control that themselves and turn things on and off themselves as well. And so we're API connected to about 5 different platforms now, and then using RPA for the others. And we have another 3 in the works for APIs. We will always try and go APIs first. It's more stable. There's less maintenance, but a little unknown fact with API. Sometimes people think an API is an API, which is not the case. Each platform is a little different. A lot of them are messy. A lot of them won't account for all the nuances that a shipper needs. And so there's definitely some platforms we interact with will API the rate in and go with RPA to finalize some things. We have to make a detailed offer or enter a comment section, something like that. Because shippers a lot of times don't use their systems 100% correctly. They rely on the comment section. They'll put on the load request, every equipment type known to man, but then say Dan team in the comments. That's why we added this field. Our users can self-map their own keywords. So if you want to no-go hazmat shipments and you have a new transportation manager and they start calling it dangerous or they start calling it has, you can add those keywords yourself to trigger it. So you don't have to code anything. You don't have to come to us to code anything. And so it works really, really well with that and just can change on the fly.
Are you guys managing all these APIs to the shipper platforms?
Yes. So with us, what's included in our fees is we manage and monitor and maintain all virtual machines. Our customers don't have to deal with virtual machines. We manage, monitor, and maintain the APIs and the RPA. So if anything changes, we are monitoring, so we'll fix it correctly. If an API changes and the platform doesn't say anything, that happens sometimes.
So this is about as close as possible as you can get to a true SaaS product where they're paying a subscription, dropping in the API credentials, configuring it how they want through the interface, and kind of set and forget it until they want to make changes.
Exactly. And since you said set forget it, what I always say on sales calls is automation. Like we get very involved with our customers. I see automation as a very intimate relationship. You think like here's the product and I'll run with it, but it's up to us to make sure that they have success. And so when you're managing these parameters, it's not a set and forget it. The customers that have the most success are in there once a week, tweaking the dials, adjusting win-loss percentage. we kind of have two levels of ROI. The first is if you quote more, you're going to win more freight. That's simple. You'll see that in week 2 of being live. The other is the data and how you use it to refine your process. That's going to come 6-9 months down the road once you have enough volume going through. And so another common question I get asked is like, well, what's your average win rates? I tell everybody, we cannot guarantee you're going to win freight. I can't guarantee you're going to increase your revenue. If you quote for $3,000 margins, you're not winning anything. I can guarantee you're going to quote everything you want to quote and not quote what you don't. Guarantee you're going to quote on average 68%. That's where we're sitting at. One of our customers that has the highest win rate, they're sitting at 32%. They're very dialed in. They know exactly what they want to quote.
So they're winning 32% of the loads that they quote.
They're winning 32% of the loads they quote.
What were they winning before that?
Before that, they actually have to say they had no idea because you have no way of tracking it. Like if a broker's not automating, they have zero way to understand what their win-loss percentages is. On the flip side, now I can tell you how much they are quoting because we can see the data. And so that's where our guarantees they're going to quote more. Yeah. Our lowest win rate is 1%. They're quoting like 10,000 loads a day. So they just have a different strategy.
So essentially, like to put this in maybe sports context, they were able to know how many hits they got, but they had no idea how many at-bats they were actually getting or they could have been getting.
Yeah.
Yeah. And now you can track the at-bats and the hits.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Yeah.
I like that analogy. I might steal it.
Take it. Yep. Cheers. Cheers. All right. So you led into it already a little bit about some customer success stories. I always love hearing these because, I want to know what's actually working out there. What are a couple customer success stories that you can share with us, either naming some companies or not naming companies? It's totally up to you, whatever they've given you permission to do. Talk about some of the success stories you guys have seen so far.
Yeah. So a couple that come to mind. One, I'll touch on another speed one. So we just had a speaking engagement at E2 on their panel, and I had the VP of pricing over at Traffic Tech on. And so speed wise, they were automating their quoting process before us, and they were on a certain platform for 8.5 months. In 8.5 months, they got 6 shippers up and running. We got 16 up and running in 5 weeks. So that's a success story because when you make these purchases, the clock's running. So you want to start capitalizing on it and not wasting months out of your contract. The other success story.
Were 6 of those shippers that the other platform got in 8 months the same 6 that you got faster?
No, we got 16 in 5 weeks.
You added 16 additional ones.
So we had 16 in total in 5 weeks. So the 6 they were originally doing, and then 10 more.
Oh, so those 6 were included. That's what I was saying. Yeah. So those 6. Yeah. Got it. Okay.
Those were included. Another success story I would say would be what we're seeing on some of that the real-time rating and that dynamic pricing is you're getting companies that now have access to this technology that originally was only for the mega brokerages of the world that had really deep pockets, and they can now do it. And to where we have one customer that is last week, they won 120 loads from one shipper just by that.
That they weren't winning before?
They were not winning before. They didn't have access to it before.
So they increased their volume by 120 loads just by using Tabi Connect.
Just by using Tabi Connect.
How about margin on those? Were they good margin loads? Like what's the win on that? Because obviously volume is great, especially next year when rates come back more than likely. Yep. But were they good paying loads?
They were good paying loads. They quoted for the margin. It matches the margin they were quoting for. And so
they got what they wanted out of it.
They got what they wanted. They were thrilled. We do stress because they're coming like, all right, you're winning load cap. Are you making money? So my response to that is if they weren't making money, they would stop quoting them, or they would increase their margin, or they would stop adding shippers. So it's not like they have to quote it because it's so dynamic. You can just change. If you win a load and you don't make as much as you want, then change the margin right away, and it's live automatically.
Right. Yep. That's excellent. So they have the ability to quote more freight. They can now assess what freight they're quoting, what their wins are, what their losses are, and see a direct impact in that, which I think is great. I love that. Talk about the onboarding process, because I think this is really critical for people who are watching this.
Oh, I'll take over again. So this is the Edge Dan Hellman show.
I think it's the reason why a lot of companies. Am I back?
You're back, I think.
Oh man. It's so frustrating. I know we're gonna get through it for sure. Hopefully, the next one won't be a problem. This is a Dan Hellman show, though. At this point. That's how it does work. What I was asking was the onboarding process. I think this is one of the reasons that companies hesitate to pull the trigger on tech is because the onboarding sometimes seems like a heavy lift. They've had bad experiences in the past. Talk a little bit about somebody that you work with. They sign the agreement. They're ready to go. Now what?
Yeah. So they sign the agreement. They're ready to go. On average, they'll be live in 4 to 5 weeks for the initial rollout. Each shipper they add after that could be as fast as 30 minutes to add new shippers on, or as long as about a week to add more shippers.
And is that because if they're already connected via API, they just put in the credentials and it's good?
Yeah.
And then if it's not, you have to either build a connection API. And
it could be that. And so every platform is just a little different. Now, when it takes a little bit longer, like that week, it's because there's nuances with that particular shipper that need to be captured. No shipper on a single platform does things the same way. And so with us, we take all that build out, designing on, and that's our responsibility. We don't put that on the customers. That's when we can kind of really scale quickly with that. So while the developers are doing their developing thing, we have an account manager that will walk through, set up the parameter sets with each user. We have the training platform that they can access at any time. And then also, especially for our larger customers, we'll go on site and actually do face-to-face training and onboarding. So since we are all former brokers, there's always a little change management. There's change management when you get brokers to do something a little different, or you want them to quote differently. So we can help with that. We can explain why, how it's going to benefit them, because we talk to talk. We've used the product as brokers. A lot of our sales reps were former customers. They wanted to come on board because they saw how impactful it was. So we handle all that. And then in the first month, weekly meetings to go over not just response rates, but now, all right, let's got your response rate up. Let's work on that win rate. Okay, your win rate's increasing. Now let's work on how to use your data. Because a lot of brokers aren't great at using their data, so we want to educate them with that. And the reason we do this is, one, because it's the right thing to do. But two, with our pricing structure, if they don't have success, they don't grow. If they don't grow, we can't increase our revenue. So we are extremely invested that they'll have quick success with that. So they want to continue rolling it out.
Now, is it just a quick question? There's a lot of, like we talked about, automation platforms out there. Are you seeing customers that are being exclusive in terms of working with you, or are you seeing customers that are saying, "Hey, we want to see what multiple platforms can do for us, maybe working together, or working on different aspects of the business"? What's that been like in your experience?
So, majority of the time, it's kind of one or the other. Partly because there's significant overlap. We do have a couple of customers that will use, ourselves and one others to see what works better, side-by-side comparison, or how they can interact with each other. We are, completely agnostic with who we will integrate with. If a customer wants us to integrate with a automation competitor, cool, we'll do it. We don't care. We let the customer decide of who we want to connect with. We're never going to say, no, we're not going to integrate with them, or no, we're not going to connect with them. You have to use this.
Yeah. Are you finding that the majority of customers that you guys are getting are customers already familiar with automation, or is it net new for them?
I would say it's about almost a 50-50 split from very familiar with it to I've heard about this, I've seen it in the news, I need to act on it. There's been a significant shift in the industry. About a year and a half ago, our conversations were not just our platform usability, but like why they should automate. Now the industry knows they need to do this. And so they want to see what's the best product for them. My opinion, in 2-3 years, everybody's going to have to do it. It's going to be like GPS tracking. There's a big competitive advantage. Now it's just expected because, margins are getting squeezed. You have to be more efficient. You have to be able to do more. And really, nobody likes quoting. It's not fun. No one likes it. No one likes staying late at night and doing bid packages or working spot rates. They'd rather go home or go to a happy hour. So we don't have to educate so much on why automation should happen. Now they know they need to. And so kind of educate on the terminology and how it's going to affect them.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. I think it's a couple of things that are going to be massive benefits. I think it's going to become table stakes in order to do more with less. I think that's where a lot of the brokerages are going. But also the idea that you can do something that will run on its own. You don't have to do those late night bids and that kind of stuff. I'm seeing that not only with this type of technology, but companies like Navix with automating, invoicing and things like that, where owners were staying 2 to 3 hours to do paperwork are now not doing that. This is the direction all the technology is headed, and brokers really need to get on board with that and move in that direction. So it's exciting to see these developments and see that move in this direction. Quick question. You're probably a little disappointed this didn't come out 5 or 6 years ago when you were a broker and you guys could have used it yourself, but there's probably a lot of satisfaction in now providing it for other brokers, throughout the industry.
Yeah, it's there's a lot of. I wish I would have had it. It would have made my life a heck of a lot easier. But there's a lot of satisfaction in one, helping companies that would never have access to this before, that they don't have $400,000 to drop on it, and so they can kind of ease into it and help them scale. But also a lot of satisfaction in like the deeper relationships we get. There's, because we're going on site, because we're really working through the process, you develop a lot of strong relationships, friendships, and that's been really, really nice. The connections are fantastic.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And something I also noticed that you've been doing, not as lately, maybe I've just missed them online, but for a while there, you were posting a lot of success stories from your customers. I thought that was great. I think whenever you can show that your customers are seeing a benefit, that gives a lot of validity and authority to what you guys are doing. Have you stopped doing that? Am I just missing them? Because I thought that was a great strategy.
I think you might be missing them. So we still are. Either I typically reshare what our Tabi Connect page. So anyone listening, follow Tabi Connect, the LinkedIn page. They come out every single week, a new success story. And so one, showing what we're doing in companies, some companies may have heard of, some you haven't, of all shapes and sizes.
Yeah, I feel like that's a really great a great strategy to do, because again, if customers hear other customers' success stories, or prospects hear customers' success stories, it's a much easier sell on your part than having to convince them on your own. I'm sure you do a great job, but it's always easier when the customers help you out, which I think is awesome.
Definitely.
All right, excellent.
It's a small industry that everyone knows everybody too.
Yeah, it is. It's kind of the way it is. What's the best way for somebody to get in touch with you? Obviously, they can follow on LinkedIn, but what else?
LinkedIn, shoot me a direct message there. You can shoot me an email, danh@tabiconnect.com. That's also another easy way. And if you can't find me, or if you forget my email address, can't find me on LinkedIn, any Tabi team member, shoot them a message and they'll get you in touch with me or a member of our team.
Okay, my friend, we got to give you the final word. Any last words about this? Any last thing you want to show on the demo? Anything at all to send us off here today on this episode of The Edge?
Yeah, so I would say keep an eye open. 3 weeks, a new platform is coming out. We are going to do a LinkedIn Live demo with it. A lot of new capabilities, that more controls, especially more reporting to present data back to brokerages. So it's actual data and it's not just columns and fields. So we're hyper focused on that. Beautiful. Love that, man. We're looking forward to that demo and the other announcements and showing off the new platform, which you couldn't show off today. I'm going to have to, get in somebody's grill about that. I'm not too happy about that, but that's all right. And where we're going to see you out on the road? You're going to be at Technovations. You're going to be, where else are you going to be out on the road? I couldn't make Technovations. I've been traveling for like the past 9 weeks. So I had to fortunately couldn't make that. I will be at DatCon next week with our team. So anyone's coming, shoot me a message. We'd love to meet up, grab a beer and chat. And then we'll have people at F3. At F3 in Chattanooga. Back in November. Very good. Awesome. Dan, thanks for taking the time to jump on the edge with us today and show off what Tabi Connect is up to. Look forward to seeing you out there on the road, my friend. Well done. Thank you. It's been a pleasure. All right, man. We'll talk to you soon. I got to give you your walkout music on the way out. A little more of the greatest showman. All right. See you, buddy. Yeah. All right, everybody, listen up. We've got another episode of The Edge next month, so make sure you come back for that. We're going to have isometric technologies on here. Very excited about that. Got a couple of things we're going to as well. So if you're out on the road, we're going to be at the Broker Carrier Summit next week, October 12 and 13. We're going to be at TI Technovations in San Diego, October 18 through 20. And finally, we'll be at Women in Trucking, one of my favorite shows of the year, down in Dallas, November 5 through 8. So if you're going to be at any of those, shoot me a message. Let's connect. Let's hook up. It would be great to see you guys down there at those shows. Also, don't forget, we've got Word on the Street every Friday at noon Central. Got a great episode this week coming up.
every Monday morning. We have Iron Minds. And this Monday coming up soon, we have a special guest, a mystery guest on the show. He lives here in St. Louis with me. You may know him. You might be able to guess him. And finally, we always have Standing Out on Tuesday at 2 p.m. Got some great guests coming up. The one and only Reed Lostelot going to be on the show next week. So a lot of fun things happening around here. And we appreciate you watching The Edge. Again, this was brought to us by the Monero Group. Love them so much. Wasim Monero, great guy, the best recruiter in the industry. Check him out at monerogroup.com or follow him on LinkedIn. And until next time, we will see you guys. This has been The Edge, showcasing the latest in logistics technology. We'll see you guys real soon.